Captain's log, Stardate Supplemental.
Welcome to Stardate Supplemental, a Star Trek fan show about the ships not named Enterprise. We are hosted Brothers Weems. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Conrad. You can call me Cobra. How's it going, everybody?
Good. Most do, honestly. Truth told.
I mean, honestly, most do. So I find myself with a conundrum, Kyle, and maybe you and the good listeners, viewers even, could help me with a decision here. I've been invited to leave tomorrow at 2 and then return sometime on Saturday afternoon to accompany Django to a pinball convention in Tacoma. So,
go.
Let that think. Yeah, so like my thoughts initially are this means sleeping somewhere else.
Yes.
And a pinball convention. And I'm not, a pinball aficionado. But it would mean just a random road trip with the bud.
So there's some flip sides, right? It's a lot of driving both days because Tacoma is 3 to 4 hours depending on traffic away from us, right? Yeah. Probably closer to 3. But also, what are the sleep accommodations, right? That's fair, okay? Also, how many other people are going with your bud, right? So
odds are if Django's asked me, he has probably not got another companion.
That is awesome then, because that means it's literally a bro trip. Also, thirdly, and this is the most important part, what are the odds that in between bouts of pinball or selling comic books or whatever it is he's doing, will he be eating hot wings and or tzatziki sauce and or having a beverage with you? Because then, as long as you're able to do that, that's what counts.
Okay, so what I love about this, and I feel like, oh man, I just wanted an image of this, is you're like, and or eating tzatziki sauce. Now, mind you, that's the context.
Just straight.
No, I'm just like, see, you're thinking drinking, I'm thinking with a spoon, like just a spoon, just eating it like
so like a bowl of tzatziki. Yeah,
like
no, that's
tzatziki.
Honestly,
I mean, it's a chunky enough tzatziki sauce, that could almost work.
Yeah, because sometimes you get a chunky one. You know what I mean? They're like, we're gonna have some fat cucumbers or something. It's a lot, though, right? That's like eating a bowl of ranch. Like like 2 bites in, you're like, I've made choices, and they aren't good, and now I'm committed, right? Because you can't just be the guy who bitched out on a bowl of tzatziki sauce after 2 bites. You're a tzatziki guy now. You got to go all the way through.
Okay, well, one, it's your future nickname. People just call you Tzatziki, but which is weird, but kind of cool.
Correct. Tzatziki Weems has a ring to it.
But on the other
or
hand,
is it Tzatziki? Tzatziki? I don't know anymore.
There's a T and a Z. I don't know how that works. And it's also originally from Greek. So like we're forcing our letters on it.
We got our letters from them, bro.
No. We got our letters from the Latins.
Who got them from the Greeks? Stop being a biscuit about it.
No, Kyle. The Greek alphabet's got like a whole bunch of letters.
They've got some we no longer use, yes. But the Greek alphabet, which came from the Phoenicians, got to the Latins also, and then we got that. But the point is they use largely the same letters, historically. And tzatziki. So that's like a DZ. Tzatziki?
We have some of their letters. The Greek alphabet has like, gamma, delta, theta.
Correct. You really... Yeah. Do you know you're being pedantic? I mean, it's obvious that we inherited an evolution of that alphabet. But you're right. I mean, like Omega dropped out. We got Z. W wasn't even around yet, let alone U, which is weird.
No, I think we got W's and V's and all that from the Germans. Actually, what's really impressive, they didn't even have a J. So it's interesting how a lot of names, like for instance, a lot of biblical names that we have,
which are Hebrew mostly.
And what's that?
You mean like Hebrew Bible, or do you mean like the Greek Bible?
Like New Testament. Like New Testament.
Yeah, okay.
So, like in the New
Which is
Testament,
mostly written
like,
in Greek. Well, carried to us in Greek, yeah.
Well, and a lot of people in that time spoke Greek or wrote stuff in Greek. Although, depending on the author, it would vary, right? Some of the authors wrote Greek. But the point is that, so there's a lot of names that we have that wouldn't have been said the way they were said then. And it's interesting to watch biblical scholars or scholars talk about that kind of stuff where they're like, yeah, you got this name, like John or something like that. Like, they didn't have a J. J came later. That was like a more modern invention. But on the other hand, like the word they said, you could see how it became John, and John's still right because that's our version of the name, because the average English speaker can't say the name that would have been said then because you don't speak those. We don't have those sounds. It's like, what was the one I heard the other day? This is one that's in English. E-R, that noise.
Yeah.
Like, apparently super rare outside of, like, Mandarin and English. So, like the two biggest languages in the world have it, but most other languages don't, apparently.
Well, I mean, like, we know the Japanese, for example, don't really use it. E-R. I don't know. I feel like that's in Spanish and French. Maybe in Germanic. Am I crazy?
I don't know.
Berlin.
Kyle, try to no. Well, yeah, but I don't think they say Berlin the way we do. But it's not the like. There's a particular instance of it. For instance, Germans have an extremely hard time saying squirrel.
Sure.
Like, it's apparently, so it's a little things you don't think, and you're like, but I feel like you guys have all the right letter sounds to make that. They're like, but that combination noises. It's like when you hear there are certain noises that as an English speaker, for instance, Spanish speakers, there's a certain BV noise that you're like, I don't know. That I feel like you made that up. And they're like, no, you're not saying it right. It's like this. It's
yeah. Well, and it varies, right? But no, that one I hated. I think it's just V, but the way they say it, yeah, the noise was very different.
I thought it was B that they had a V. Like,
was it
anyhow, there are certain like consonant and vowel sounds that different languages have that like are more or less common, and it's always interesting when you're like,
I don't think tzatziki has anything to do with that. It was a sauce that the word came in the mid-20th from modern Greek, which came from a Turkish word, which came from a Persian word. So, the Greeks didn't like.
Well, okay, so maybe not the Greeks, but I'm just wondering because how do you pronounce tzatziki? How do Americans pronounce
tzatziki?
Tzatziki. So it's a silent T. Tzatziki. It's like zamisi. Gotcha.
It's not entirely silent. It's like a soft D. Good luck.
That's okay. Then it makes me think the other day of a Icelandic comedian. I think his name's Cosmo. That's what he performs under. And his whole thing is about, as somebody who didn't speak English growing up, about his whole routine's about English and how weird it is. And one of the things that was him for weird, and I want to say he's Icelandic, but it could be he's one of the Scandinavian countries. And
Is it Ismo?
Ismo. That's him. And one of his big things is like, at one point he talked about silent letters, and he says that's really weird because they don't do that in their own language. So like, he's like, yeah, you have words that are letters, but these are just for the paper, just for writing down. Just for that. And he's like, this is what. And he's like, but the rules, he's like, they don't make sense.
Well, you know what? For all he's saying that, like, their languages, descends from the same language as Norwegian, and the Norwegians have a different language for writing versus speaking in some ways, if I remember correctly. Whisper can update me on that. So like. They write, like, their form of language has diverted. So their formal writing isn't written to be the same as the way they speak. So,
and then that's crazy.
Yeah. So they have an official written language and official spoken language, and they've diverted. They're not.
Wait. Okay, hold on. Does their spoken language and their written language then use different words?
That's what I mean. Like they write things, down differently when they're writing it.
Okay, that's insane.
And everyone, knock on wood. This is coming from Whisper, my wife's friend, Preligut. That's his online handle, who is a Norwegian. But I don't know how much of that is fully understanding his description of the situation.
Kyle, we're a podcast. We're allowed to be wrong as long as we're being honest and genuine in our attempt to understand it.
No, right, exactly. But I mean, the thing is, I don't like to speak as an authority when I'm like, a guy told me. You know what I mean?
On the other hand, a Norwegian guy told you this. He could be lying. He could be pulling your leg, which is funny. What I also love, but that makes me think of like the Japanese to a degree. I mean, they're not the same, but where they're like we use 3 alphabets, and you're like, wait a minute, what? And you're like yeah, we've got kanji, and then we've got katakana, or it's katakana? I think it's katakana, and romanji, which is English scripts, and you're like, yeah, that's okay. I mean, the romanji came later because you got letters for us, and it's great for loanwords. But then I saw this whole video of this guy talking about like, why don't you guys just get rid of them all and stick with one? And he's like, one, most of us can't read all the kanji because it's hard. 2, katakana is great, but it's impossible for like loan words sometimes. 3, romanji has different context. So we talked about how like different kinds of writing for different purposes, there's a subtle context in the delivery when you use the different like script system.
By the way, I've just learned. I'm sorry, I wasn't ignoring you, but I was. Yeah, kanji, hiragana, got it. They have 2 official written languages, versions, like dialects, whatever you want to call them. One is called Bokmål, and one is called Nynorsk. Bokmål is like, it descends from Danish writing systems, and so it's the older version. Nynorsk is more like American English in the sense that it is a more modern way of writing and speaking, and more resembles spoken dialects. But they also have a lot of dialects, not all of which are mutually very intelligible, because although the majority of the people live in the southeast, right, they have tons of fjord communities that are small and very isolated. So they're speaking, it's like it's like the strange little pockets of like southeastern Georgia where you're like, what is that? And they're like, technically English. What do you mean technically, right? And they're like, well, good luck understanding it. So it's kind of like that situation. So anyway, this has been Kyle is quickly coming up to speed. And of course,
what I'm just hearing is we need to step it up. I did see one. Yeah. I love it when people get Tolkien nerdy on this. I saw a script system that somebody had invented like early 19th century, I think, for English, because they're talking about how like if you look at the roots of English and where it comes from and everything, the Roman alphabet is like a terrible alphabet for us. Like we make a lot of compromises, and he basically invented no. For the English language, we should be doing this, like kind of like this system inspired.
We inherited a lot of Germanic and Norse words early on that mutated with all the Romance languages. Yeah.
Well, kind of like it's okay. So if you want to get into it, I like English is super. The reason English is so messed up, you have an island of a variety of Brittonic peoples, so Celtic languages and stuff, and there's a mash there. Then a bunch of Latin speakers invade it and then colonize it. Then you've got 2 different groups. Then you've got a bunch of Vikings at some point. And
it's also worth noting the Brittonics weren't the first people there, right? They took it. They invaded. There's still, and we're not talking even the north where Scotland is. There were other tribes that predated the Brittonic peoples that were still speaking.
Were there pre-Brittonic peoples that were still alive at that time? I thought
they were an influence on the culture. I'm not entirely certain on there.
Okay, so there may have been pre-Brittonic peoples, the Brittonic peoples, then the Latin speakers, then the Vikings, who the early Vikings were Norse speakers. That's why there's Norse mixed in. Then you get, around this point, you get the Germanic peoples with the Saxons. And it turns out that when you don't pay them, things go poorly. Then you get the French Vikings, the Normans.
The Normans,
the Norsemen, the Normans. So it's like, what? And I'm like, you got Vikings, they take part of northern France, they get Frenchified, then they come over and they take here. And then you still got the Welsh, who were still speaking a form of old Celtic languages, and then the Irish speaking old Gaelic, and then the Scots, because Scots English isn't English because it's still got a lot of old roots from the Picts and the Gaelics.
Right. So you have Scottish Gaelic, which came, and Gaelic's really weird. If you look at like how it went back and forth between like, the original collection of Gaelic Celtic nations and then mutated up in the north and went back and forth a couple different ways where it just got more fucked. And then Scots isn't even that, right? It's like, what if, correct me if I'm wrong, what if like English and a really weird bastard version of Gaelic ran at each other at full speed and made something,
Oh man! Not only is that what I'm pretty sure. I think that's right. I remember. Oh gosh, what's its name? Shetland. Have you ever watched Shetland?
I have only the first season. Is it only one season? It might be, but I've watched it.
I think there's 4. I think it's beautiful. Also, the Scottish landscape spoke to a part of my soul that made me so happy. It's a beautiful show.
For those that aren't familiar, because we only say this once every 3 episodes, we are Americans of Scottish extract. Unfortunately, the first Scottish ancestor arrived in 1700s. That's the Weems. We've had a few resupplies on various maternal sides over history, but unfortunately, we were raised in a very boring, generic white American household. So we just pine for the culture that we weren't raised with. You know,
I thought it was really interesting. Part of that's probably my romanticization, but Shetland, I really loved the show because the imagery, I don't know, it really spoke to some ancient primal part of my soul. But I was watching it, on Netflix, and I'd be cooking and stuff, and I had subtitles on because, God, they're hard enough to understand. But the subtitles would put up words where I'm like, that's not English. What the heck is...
Yeah, you pause and you're like, gotta Google that.
No, I did. I had to Google. I had to look at the words where I'm like, no, that's a real word. That's Scots. It's not.
And it's pretty funny, right? Because you've got on the closed captioning, but it's not translating those words. So it's like, it's dialect, And so you're just kind of like, I hope I get by context what Surburn means or whatever, And you're like, I hope this wasn't important. That's how you learn, right? No, it's fun. Language is fun. We could talk about it forever. Conrad, I do want to talk a bit about Star Trek Strange New World Season 3, and this is why.
Right.
One reason is because we are a Star Trek podcast. 2, before I get to that, everyone, Kyle has finally formalized the connection between Twitch and YouTube. And so, although they are virtually not edited at all, by which I mean not edited at all, other than to trim the very beginning where we're, before the credits starts, we will be uploading. They should be available on Fridays after we stream. Now, will the backlog ever go up? I have a hold of it, which means someday, probably. But new episodes going forward, starting with last week's, will go up. And eventually, I'll make some time to encapsulate that. Also, while I'm at it, because some of you on YouTube, hi YouTube, I also have a cartoon that I started a few weeks back. It's called Punch Wizard. You can find it at youtube.com/@punchwizard. And there are 3 cartoons up for tomorrow, along with a few shorts. They're about 2 minutes each. Cobra, you guest star as Gunstash on that. Your voice recording was plagued by Mike and Child, but I got a couple lines off of you. So, I got a couple lines. Yeah, I mean, the good news is there's some cursing, so the beeps helped fill it in, and I trimmed a bit, but there's like one full out line and kind of a quasi line. Yeah, thank you, Chameleon, for putting that up. So anyway, I wanted to say that. Cobra, either make sure your baby's not on fire, your toddler's not on fire, or trust your children, children-ish, to watch the child.
Yeah.
Well, he's just straight up in the room, so something fell apart.
He came in. I'm really excited. Hey, everybody, watch Punch Wizard. I love it. Now, it's not just because Kyle. Next time we'll work on the audio, but you said you got some good lines out of it. Hopefully,
no, I got a good line and don't worry. I covered the RARs because our voices are close enough. You just couldn't hold the tone long enough with the background cutting out because of the mic. But that's okay. That's okay. The quality's good enough, I promise you. We don't need to ruin the magic. And yes, Whispering plays the part of Princess Evil, who is Punch Wizard's girlfriend. She's in episode 3 so far, but will be a recurring character. So yeah, please enjoy that. It was just a lot of fun to make. It has nothing to do with Star Trek. They're just little fun adventures from the villain's point of view. That's a parody of certain 80s cartoons named He-Man, basically. And they're dumb, and I'm going to keep making them. So, please enjoy it. And thank you, Whisper, by the way, for your voice acting. That was very good as well. But she's absolutely great. Rhymes with B-Dan. Exactly. B-Dan. And, the blasters of the Blurniverse. Just a random word, And he disappeared just as I was about to wrap this. So that's funny. That's okay. I can stretch my neck. Ooh. You ever hear like the bones in your neck popping too much? That's probably a sign. Gooniverse. Yes, it does rhyme with Gooniverse, Chameleon. But dang. Yeah. I don't know if it's quite the same. But yeah, Stardate Supplemental is updating live now. Well, not live. It's updating on YouTube on the days following our stream. So for those of you that are interested that can't catch it live and don't have a chance to catch it before it expires on Twitch, we're going to be building up an archive there starting with last episode, and we'll be pushing up stuff before that. Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, it's probably not good to quit your day job without a replacement, Chameleon, but I think Gooniverse is a pretty funny statement, so that's good too. But yeah, in today's society, right? There's that dream, quitting a day job. Is he back? Nope, that was just a flicker off the edge I thought I saw. I don't know what's going on. I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna guess here. We can all guess, chat. I'm thinking that my nephew Lloyd wants a popsicle. That's what I think. Hey, Kishnok. We're here live. You missed it. Cobra disappeared because his son broke into his recording room. So his 4-year-old son. Which means that a teenage child in the house who is being bribed to watch said son has failed. So, these things happen. So he'll be back in just a moment. And we're going to be talking in just a few minutes about the USS Prometheus. Seen on Voyager, Message in a Bottle. It's one of the coolest guest ships I think they have. It's a shame that we see so few Starfleet vessels, even though that's the premise. So there's that one, the Equinox, the Raven, technically, although that's not a Starfleet vessel, that's just Federation. What else do we get that is intact? Yeah, it's really hard to keep a small child away from a room they want to be in. So I'm not upset at the teenager for their accomplishments or lack thereof. I just know that thus we're in this situation now where I'm running on 3 minutes, Cobra. That's all right. I'll hold this against him. I'm sure he'll love that. I hope everyone had a good work day. Mine was, but I'll survive. No reason to kvetch on stream. I'm here for escapism. I've almost finished my special project, though, so that's good. And, yeah. I'll just hold this really quiet. Nah. Okay. So, yeah, and in a moment, we're also going to just go over the names of the episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which July 17th isn't close enough yet. I do have a new hat. Well, actually, it's only, thank you for noticing, first off. But this one is technically a month and a half old, but I don't wear it often. So I just like it because it kind of complements this. Hey, Cobra, say something.
What's that?
Just keep talking for a minute.
I am talking to you. Hello, my name is Cobra.
Okay, you know why that's good? When you sat back down, the room tone had started to dominate your microphone, and you needed. Weird. You're fine. Because it was I don't hear anything else. That must be the default. And then it immediately reset, so you're fine.
Yeah, sorry about that, everybody.
Okay, did it involve a popsicle, or was it a diaper, or what was up?
Popsicle plus a delivery showed up to feed the children babysitting, but it was a popsicle moment.
I guess that, yeah. Oh, my elbow's gonna hurt later.
Also, this time of year, as you know, it's not crazy warm at Bellingham, but we don't have default air conditioning, so I try not to run the big stand unit. So, popsicles here's the thing: give your kids popsicles, guys. They're somewhere between 20 and 40 calories. You just give them out like they're gangbusters.
Well, what did they get as delivery for dinner?
They asked for Dairy Queen, so they got Dairy Queen.
Delivery Dairy Queen. Okay. All right. All right.
Hey, I gave them a look because I offered. I'm like, you guys are watching the kid for me while I pod because I kicked the lady out of the house because she needed to unwind. And I'm like, and they're like Dairy Queen. I'm like, Okay.
Easy for Dad. So, all right. So, Conrad, Strange New Worlds. Okay, here. Okay, July 17th. Before we move on to the next thing, this was what I was forever ago going to talk about. We started talking about languages and cultures and popsicles. So, episode 1, Hegemony Part 2. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, let's figure out what happens. Episode 2, Wedding Bluebells. Okay, not sure whose wedding.
Do they mean wedding blue balls? No, so
okay.
This is too early for two.
Okay,
this is too early for Spocks.
Episode 3, this one definitely has one of those names that could become a classic, right? Like, it sounds like, the kind of thing that you're like, oh, it's like Galileo 7, and suddenly it's a classic. Shuttle to Kinfori.
Man,
it sounds kind of like it's a shuttle bottle episode. You know what I mean?
Wait, shuttle what?
To Kinfori. Kenfori. I think that's a new world, but...
to Kinfori.
Yeah. Okay, episode 4, A Space Adventure Hour. That is almost certainly going to be the one where we see in the teaser that they're dressed up like weird old sci-fi. I don't know if this is a holodeck episode, and I'm still kind of like, why do we have a holodeck? But okay, right. Episode 5, Through the Lens of Time. Time shenanigans, maybe? Maybe. Episode 6, this one's fun. Definitely Vulcan. The Sellat Who Ate Its Tail.
Okay, see, look, hold on, I have to respond to Django about the thing we talked about because he just messaged me. But I am into that because, for those who don't know, isn't that the Vulcan, the thing where...
They're the Vulcan teddy bears, yes. That are, in fact...
If they go with what... If the animated series is canon, Vulcan's ideas of a teddy bear is terrifying.
I think that animated series canon is only sharply respected by Lower Decks. Everyone else is kind of like... really loosey-goosey with it. Whereas Lower Decks steals from it on a regular basis. And is over, sadly. Okay. Episode 7 is What is Starfleet? ? So this could be a moral episode, or this could be an outsider's view episode. The latter would be funny, right? Episode 8, this is going to be a groaner, because this is 4.5 Vulcans. And we saw the pitch for this like a year ago, when they were like, hey, season 3's coming eventually, and then they beam down and they beam back and they're like all Vulcans for some reason, and they're acting like they're all Vulcans because that's how you work, right? Your genes change and you immediately don't remember yourself as anything else. Episode 9.
No, wait.
I mean, obviously, if your brain chemistry changes, but you'd think that the transporter.
Yeah, everything we know about Vulcans, though. Yeah. If anything, their emotions should just become more wild without training.
Right? Exactly. See? And they didn't have the training. So they should be... Conrad, if anything, they should be like... tits out, Kyle, drinking the medicinal whiskey. You know what I mean?
Kyle, what I expect to get to see is Pike grab a dude, and then if everything we've learned is true from that time frame, he's going to take a dude, smash him up into the roof of a doorway, then slam him down, and then later on take a pipe that's clearly, obviously meant to be bent, and bend it around his neck.
Yeah, by the way, he's strong enough to do that, but is the neck strong enough for the pipe? There's questions here. Episode 9 is Terrarium. Okay, sounds like, another kind of enclosing. And episode 10, Conrad, if I didn't already know that their season 4 was being worked on, episode 10 would scare me. Because this is what it's called. New Life and New Civilizations. Does that not sound like a series finale?
Okay, I mean, that sounds like a series finale. That sounds like...
We know there's an episode 4, so... And we're still several years short of Pike kicking it, so...
So here's what I'm trying to contemplate. Kirk took command, I guess, after Pike, right? Like, there's no captain in between?
Yes.
So what I'm trying to figure out is...
it's not clear. But I believe... Like, the canon never says that. But the beta canon implies that Kirk followed Pike.
So of we only know of 2 Enterprise captains before Kirk.
3 at this point. There's Robert April and there's Pike. There's a guy before Robert April.
Robert
So-
April Pike. There's a guy before Robert April? Oh.
I think so. Hold on.
I have to say, I really love what they've done with taking that reference that was Robert April and then making him an admiral. And
honestly,
like,
Admiral
they've done a great job.
Admiral April is so
Is
good,
Admiral
and
April?
also,
Is it Robert April?
yeah, and them being not afraid to change. I think it's Robert April.
Yeah, yeah, Robert April. You're right. Yeah.
And there's some canon oddity, of course, because there's the anime. You know, so Memory Alpha just tries to ignore the fact that clearly they don't give a shit about the animated series, right? But
do they try to be like? Oh, he used to be white. You got like, guys, no. It's
and also, I kind of thought he'd be a throwaway character in one episode, but they keep using him, and he's great. I like.
And he's great. They've done a good job with him. Yeah, I'm really. Yeah, Robert April. Yep.
Right. Okay. So service history. Okay. April. Command of April. Nope. April then Pike. My apologies. So yeah. So that's great. Are we taking strictly Enterprise A? We're talking about the Enterprise pre-A. Yeah, the 1701.
Yeah, actually, we're talking about the original Enterprise. No bloody
the
A.
1701, not counting the which is weird because
the rebranded Yorktown.
No, the rebranded Yorktown's the A. You're right, but I was thinking about the NX-01, right? The NX-01 Archer's Enterprise is part of Earth Starfleet, but Earth Starfleet folds into Starfleet, right? During the shelf life of the NX-01. So, as near as I can tell, there is no reason that ship wouldn't have then been. Maybe it's because it has a different number.
So basically, the insinuation is that the continuation of the registry number is the reason. And so there have been times we've seen ships, for instance, the Defiant is the second Defiant.
Right. Well, and we've seen the Prometheus. No, there's several ships where the Sutherland. No, not Sutherland. Hold on. Both of them might have been in the Wolf 359 battle. We talk about it.
Well, there's the Hood. There's
Well, there's several hoods. There's two hoods at least. There's a TOS hood and a TNG hood.
Right.
But anyway, because the TOS hood is a Constitution. Anyway, the point is, yeah. So you're right that the ABCD comes off that. It's just interesting that if they're talking about honoring the original ship, it's like, okay, Kirk did a thing with whales, right? But Archer basically all but founded the Federation by doing things like punching Andorians, punching Vulcans, and punching Tellarites.
So what's really interesting is that the original. Okay, so the NX-01 is Archer's ship, and Archer is, if he's not the first president of the Federation, he's one of the first presidents of the Federation.
Is he become? I didn't know he became a president of the Federation.
I'm pretty sure he became president of the Federation
because he became Admiral Archer, but.
Oh, I thought. Maybe he just went to be an admiral. And then later on, I assumed that because the NCC 1701 is named after the original Enterprise, but it was the events of Kirk's time that directly led to them, creating the Enterprise A, and then going on down that route. Did they not get the Enterprise A? Wait. Yeah,
and just so we're clear, obviously the main point is that they invented the fucking show Enterprise well after everything else, and although it was a really interesting premise and they were leaning on the name because they were trying to revive the franchise, and they were doing the 22nd century because, I don't know, they're like, if we go really far back, we can do whatever the fuck we want. And at first they were going to do something interesting where the first season was building the ship, and then they had a rock anthem that's soft pop, and I don't know, man. The point is, obviously,
look, if they carried more with the energy of the pilot sold us a different bill of goods than we got on the show.
He did go on to become one of the Federation's earliest presidents, yes.
Okay. Well, Captain, Admiral, President, founding father, one of the founding fathers of the Federation. It is interesting, but yeah, no, it's that that naming convention thing. Archer's underrated. I have a soft spot for
the pilot was not the one with the Vulcan listening post. The pilot had the Klingon that crash landed on Earth while fighting the shape-shifting aliens who were minions of a time faction. The Vulcan listening post, I do believe, happened in the first season, though. Maybe the second, and it was a great episode. It was a great episode.
That was the first time we got to see that introduced the Andorians, right?
Honestly, I love the fact that the Andorians finally got their due, and I was excited, even though I think an Anar was a bit unnecessary. I was excited to see our good Anar engineer over on Strange New Worlds, and I was sad that they killed him off pretty much right away. They were like, no, we brought him in to die. And it's like, cool, so you brought in the blind actor to play an underserved alien, and you're going to replace it with a white person who is basically a scrub-off-the-numbers Elorian. And by the way, she's a great actress, the character's fun, but it was kind of like, that's less exciting.
Why isn't she just an Elorian instead of whatever she's supposed to be?
Yes, why isn't she just an Elorian?
My understanding is she's not an actual reference to like a TOS species?
No, she's a Lanthanite. They're brand new. So they invented a... They've been around, as far as we know, they're from Earth.
They could have just done an Elorian.
Jeffrey Crumbs' Shran kills it, Kishnok, 100%, no doubt about that.
Okay, first off, Jeffrey Combs, mad respect, but
I want to see him as a guest role in something.
His Shran is what really defined Andorians, right? Because we've never really seen them get given serious screen time before. Not saying like TNG, none of the TNG time frame really. Okay,
TNG Andorians were ugly. We only saw like a couple of go-throughs on them, and they were bad. They were like I don't know, late 80s, sniffing cocaine straight off a hooker's ass. Like, why did you think that wig was going to work? You know?
Did we ever see one even on screen more than like his background chaff?
Well, yeah. Data's daughter Lal considered an Andorian as a potential identity.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And and so that was in the foreground for like 30 seconds.
But that's background chaff. But I mean, like, so Shran really was the war for the Andorians, and then also Combs got to be, his Wayun, the face of honestly the
face of evil. Honestly, although to be fair, the real face of evil was the shapeshifter.
The shapeshifter. Well, here's the thing. He's delightful because he's not the face. Like, he could have a polite conversation with you and then order your execution next. But it's nothing personal. It's just, like, that's his job. It's
mostly nothing personal. Every now and then you can tell he really wants to kill someone. That said...
is so delightful with that. Like, he's such a good character because of that.
He's so good, and I want to point out quickly before we go, and I don't want to let you run away with this because we eventually have to go.
Yeah, true.
Is Kishnok also pointed out his close second is Marco Lima. So first off, yes, Deep Space Nine, great guest characters, great villains. Goldacott,
Goldacott.
Wayun and Goldacott. Honestly, Wayun and Goldacott's Damar. Wayun and Damar are good, but Wayun and Goldacott, the completely naked hostility from like second one, you know what I mean, is great.
Well, that's because Wayun is the most powerful Vorta in the Dominion at the time, basically, as near as we can tell. I mean, he's in this position anyways where he has this supreme authority.
At least in the Alpha Quadrant. He's basically responsible for overseeing the war on behalf of the Founders.
Like, he's the voice of the gods. But so humble at the same time. He's so great about that. Like, he subsumes himself into the role. Meanwhile, Goldacott is everything Cardassian.
Goldacott is all about his own nipples. You know what I mean? He's a selfish lover. Yeah. That's assuming Cardassians have nipples. I don't know. I assume they do because they have breasts. But the fact is, you're right. Because it's like, Wayun is like, I'm doing this because it's my job. If the Founders say my job is a janitor, I'm going to be the best janitor. You know?
Right. And while Goldacott may have been a patriot, Goldacott was all about the image of Goldacott. It was his ambition, his arrogance, his just whatever it is, the special sauce that made Goldacott so glorious. And so seeing that two contrast, oh man, so good, so good.
Do you think Rock the Gino or hot fish juice is the better morning beverage?
Okay, so okay, which do I think is a better? Here's the thing.
Because they call Roctagino Klingon style coffee, but is it coffee? That's the first question.
Okay, it's Klingon coffee, right? Whatever that means. So is Roctagino? It's heavily adopted by humans, and we even see the Bajorans drink it. So the human obsession with it leads me to believe that it is at least enough like coffee.
It has caffeine. It's presumably made from some sort of bean-like plant, right?
But also I have to believe that its flavor's got to be in that ballpark for the level of embracing we see, right? Whereas I'm fascinated personally by the hot fish juice of the Cardassians, and I think that some Earth cultures could really lean to, like, for instance, Japan, where the kind of breakfast we have, the Japanese breakfast is the same kind of stuff they would eat.
Well, I mean, let's be careful. Let's be careful. Traditionally, Japan and Korea and some places like that, yes, their breakfasts and their dinners were largely made with the same ingredients and the same items.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not so sure about Korea. I haven't studied up on it, but I know that, let's be honest, our baked goods have had a heavy influence on Japanese breakfast.
And Japan's I have seen a fascinating video about lately talking about like how that shifts, and there's like, both kinds still exist, right?
Yes, both kinds do.
Whereas in America, we're very obsessed with, we have a very particular idea of breakfast, very grain heavy,
which is weird because it's also very varied, right? Because you have bacon and eggs, you'll have cereal, which is like porridge is classic. It's thousands of years old, right?
Yeah.
Right? We've got bacon, eggs, you've got chicken and waffle, you have waffles, right? You have pancakes.
Steak and eggs. So, I mean, I'm not saying we can't get into it, but you know what you don't usually see on the American breakfast plate? Fish.
Japan, that's the interesting part, right? We're kind of like, fuck,
in
fish.
In Japan, that's very common. So, like, part of me, I'm like, look, depending on what the hot fish juice tastes like, that could be really satisfying in the morning, depending on the savoriness. But instead of coffee, like, is there a stimulant in the hot fish juice? Like, I feel like, Kyle, it's not coffee. Now I prefer mine cold, but coffee is more important to me than breakfast.
Because of its caffeine. It's a ritual item, right? Yeah. And part of it is addiction. Part of it is the let's be honest, Americans and or people who drink it throughout the world, or tea, for that matter. Caffeinated beverages have the benefit of regularity. We'll call it. You know what I mean?
It's a drug. And regularity.
No, I don't just mean that. I mean toilet regularity. You get it in the system, and it's like time to go.
Well, there's a healthy amount of fiber in there, and it triggers certain things in your brain. It's great.
Yeah. Now, Chameleon says apparently rice makes up a smaller percentage of calories in the average diet now in Japan than it did 20, 30 years ago. I believe that.
Oh, yes.
And
20 30 years ago.
Kishnuk says rice and miso salmon is a killer breakfast you don't have any morning meats. I'd eat that, honestly. That sounds good. A Whisper clipped way into his own nipples, I think. So, yeah, selfish lover. I love it. All right. Hey, bro, do you want to talk about spaceships today?
Let's do it.
Hold on. Wrong button first.
Commander.
Shut up.
There's a vessel approaching on an intercept course.
See, I say shut up because I have a soundtrack that goes with that. What's interesting is that came earlier than I remember. Season 4, Episode 14, Message in a Bottle, USS Prometheus. That's what the little clip there is from. That's where the little voiceover is for. Kishnuk looks forward to so much Conrad's a little beep boop every time. Yeah, Conrad's a little saboteur. That's his. He's been doing that to me, honestly, forever. Even before the podcast.
The irony is...
and now he's being encouraged.
No, well, to me, it's just a fun, bemusing thing I do because, I don't know, that's the way my brain works. But it fascinates me how much it severely bothers you. And that's not why I do it. It's just weird to me how much it bothers you. But also... And the reason is I can't hear any of these sound bumps, so I always forget they exist because I can't hear any of them.
Bubbly says, hello, your favorite Weems. Again,
hi,
probably
Bubbly.
Don't know many of them. Thank you, Bubbly, though. It's still appreciated.
Kishnuk
says, yeah, I appreciate being annoyed by it. Yeah. Okay, Conrad, Message in a Bottle. I'm going to give this episode 4 out of 4 stars. I feel like this is peak Star Trek. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I feel that 4 out of 4 stars is an unusual rating system. However, I 100%
5 out of 5? I mean, 4 stars
how about 5 out of 4?
I mean, what?
5 out of 4. 4 out of 4 stars. That's just so random.
4 out of 4 is normal.
Agrees. Kyle, no. 3 or 5. 4 is weird. 4 is weird.
There are 4-star review systems.
This is what a psycho rating. I agree with Kishak 100%. You're psychotic, Kyle. This is Kyle. Your system, so a 3 and a 5 has a mid peak, right? Like there's this middle score. You don't have that. There's below average and above that, and it's just this is like. Now, mind you, it's like a Michelin star scale. I don't even know how much stars a Michelin star scale.
I'm just saying, critics of films traditionally use a 4-star system. So that's where my brain was. But, okay.
Wait, do
5 stars.
Critics use 4 stars?
Frequently. Frequently, not always. Frequently, yes. So
do we respect film critics in this house?
I don't know. That's a great point. You know what? I'm going to say 5 now. I have had a chance to see the light. The audience and you have given me an opportunity to reflect.
Kyle, how about we just use a warp factor scale? Where is this a 9.9 on the warp factor scale? I mean, really, we should be rating things by warp factor in this house.
So yeah, message in a bottle. 5 stars. 5 warp 5? No, they'd have to be warp 9.9. Critics of film can bite my ass. Great bait, mate. I rate 8. Bubbly also has a broken toe. Hey, Bubbly, Whisperer probably also broke her toe. It's been very blue, painful in reasonable amounts. It's her second smallest toe on her right foot. Actually, it might be smaller. She's got weird feet. But
weird feet. I don't think it's for. Okay, first off, the weird feet. Talking about your wife's weird feet. We're not that kind of podcast. Second off,
see, she's off. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Second off, Bubbly. Which toe? Was it your big toe, your little toe?
I hope it wasn't your big toe, because that would suck.
Kyle, so in our college years, I broke my right big toe on a cement stair accidentally. Just kicked into it. Same kind of situation. What do? You just walk on it. Your average
doctor's like, do you know how small that bone is? If it's not sticking out or pointing a funny way, you just tape it to the other toe and you call it good, you know?
If they even tell you to tape it, it's just like, what are you supposed to do? Walk on it. Just walk on it. Toes reset themselves, basically. Just walk on it and suck it up. It's
sucking those toes.
She's coming to hit you with something. You should lock your office door right now. Protect yourself.
It doesn't lock. That's the really sad part. So I guess
one of those little wedges you drive under it, so at least you have a warning and you can go out a window. Is there a window you can escape out?
I'll just tape my boy cat to the side of my head, and she won't want to hit me because he'll be like feral at that point. But he'd also hurt me.
A, he's scratching you, and B, from what I know of Mister, that means there's pee leaking down your back. Probably.
Easy.
He's not the bravest boy. He's not a brave boy.
So Conrad, let's get into it. So this episode is one of the few where we get to see a Starfleet vessel. It's in the Alpha Quadrant. So what's going on is the USS Prometheus, NX59650, the second Prometheus we've covered in this show. We've talked about a very recent vessel in Deep Space Nine. That is the USS Prometheus. That is a Nebula-class starship. It's being ran by the scientist who has the wife who's like a shape-shifting alien who's having sleep sex with Cisco.
Kyle, that's a weird episode because that's a guy who's got the same kind of opinion of his nipples as Goldacott does.
Easily, right?
Goldacott's nipples. The NX. Hey, it's another NX. Good call.
Yes. So because it's experimental. So this is kind of, and it came out first, obviously, right? So we're going to talk a lot about this ship, but really briefly in the episode. What is going on is 7 of 9 has been extending the range on the astrometric Wonder Room's justification for plot devices, and has picked up a ancient satellite network throughout the Alpha, Beta, and Delta Quadrant, and it is a subspace network, so it can transmit messages very fast. And she's able to see through one of the relays the Federation ship passing through the territory. They do a whole bunch of rejiggering trying to communicate with it. They're unable to, but they learn that If we send a holographic message, it'll be fine. We don't have time to send anything else because it's going to be like 5 minutes. So, Doctor, you got to do this. They just basically plug the Doctor in. They kind of ask him if he wants to, which is nice of them for a change.
Kyle,
but I don't think no would have been
okay.
okay. You know what I mean?
Kyle, for all intents and purposes, what they do is B'Elanna runs into sickbay, grabs the USB drive that's got the Doctor's program on it.
Yeah.
They slam it into the transporter one and go, "Hey, you're okay with this, right? Right? Wink, wink." And then slam the button. He goes, "I guess I'm." And then off he goes.
Right, and it works out brilliantly. And what happens is he discovers the ship's full of Romulans, 27 to be precise, and he uses help from the EMH Mark II. The ship is equipped with holo emitters, so the pair of them are able to overpower the Romulans, save the day, and send a message from Starfleet back to the Voyager is, "Hey, we know you're alive." But Conrad, that's less important than what's going on with this fucking ship. And let's start with this photo right here. This is the sexy era. The Voyager era is all about, and for that matter, the movie at this point, they're all about sleek saucer sections. They're barely saucers anymore, you know?
I'm going to be honest. Here's the thing. Prometheus is a good-looking ship. I don't know that I ever was a big fan of the weird move but they're not just, they're like a shovel heads. Because they got the sleek front and then the square off back almost.
Right. Because they're playing off some sort of aerodynamics. And this feels almost like a dagger. Now, I'm not going to lie. I love the fat saucer on the
I love
D.
the fat saucers.
I love a big fat D. You know what I mean? Just a big, wide, girthy
big
D.
fat D's doing drive-bys. Look, they're great. We love them.
Right? But, part of it, we grew up where starting on black and white TV and then in the color, we were watching reruns because we weren't alive for the original.
True.
But reruns in the 80s, right? And of the TOS. But TNG was our first Star Trek where we were at a taste-formed age of our own opinion. And of course it looked so much cooler because it was, modern TV, and there was a teenager on the show, and he was kind of a nerd, but you sort of let it pass. And we thought he was kind of nerd. That says a lot. We were pretty fucking nerdy. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, on the nerd scale, I'm not saying we weren't Wesley nerdy, but we were definitely Will Wheaton nerdy.
Correct. Yeah, we weren't Wesley nerdy because we weren't in a rich family that could afford what Wes had. You know what I mean? We didn't have the equivalent nerd tools. We were we eventually had access to a lot of personal computer stuff early, but, we didn't have, a garage full of random shit that they told, make a nuclear, weapon, see what happens. Fucking Wesley, man. The stuff they let him do is insane.
The action was funny.
Peter Parker nerdy, exactly.
With the access to a replicator, Wesley's fashion, however... look, we had to wear what we had to wear because it was the 80s. But Wesley could just order a new sweater.
Do you think parents have a lock on fashion replication for their kids? So that way your daughter doesn't go to school in, whatever you don't approve of? Because it's usually... let's be honest, they don't police boys' bodies nearly as much. It's always hey, Susie, you can't wear it, crop top.
The closest they get for boys most of the time is their T-shirt or hat having inappropriate slogans on it.
They're is that drugs or gangs? Also, your pants, hike them back up. That's pretty much it.
Also, since we were kids in the 80s, if they thought your outfit was a little too gay, maybe. Nowadays, they probably
Connor, okay, everyone, we have... So, Connor and I had the misfortune of going to a conservative Northern Baptist private school. Poor private school but we were much poorer than the average students because our mother was a janitor
in a poor private school.
So they made fun of us, and it was very conservative and very small classes, and we would have to go to chapel every Wednesday, which is just basically an excuse to make you get an extra Bible lesson every week, right? And our mother knew that we had to have button-up shirts and for that, and we had to have a tie. But it didn't say that the button-up shirts couldn't be cool. So she made us, and, our mom wasn't always cool. In fact, most of the time she wasn't, but this was cool. She got these two matching fabrics. One was a red and one was blue, but it was cartoon characters on surfboards with sharks, right? And correct. And we got those shirts made.
so core memory that as soon as you started to go down this road, I'm like, he's going to talk about the surf shark shirts.
Yes. And when we got them, I think Conrad ended up with the red one. I ended up with the blue one. It might have been reversed. I forget what our color. I think you were the red. I think you were the red sun, and I was the blue sun back then.
I think I always got red, and you always got blue.
Our mother color coded us because although we're twins, it's worth noting when we were children, it was very identical. We've had some time to change, and Cobra has different grooming than I do now with his goatee and beard. It's beard now, but back then our hair had more or less the same level of waviness, and we had the identical squeaky voices. He was half an inch to an inch taller than me, depending on the era, and that was about it. But anyway. And there was really kind of a moment where, like, Connor was already beginning to, like, comb his hair back, and because he wanted to be stylish, mind you. It wasn't, like, foppish, just stylish. They didn't let him have a flat top yet. He did that in 8th grade. It was flat, folks. Not quite Guile, but pretty close.
I mean, it was as flat of an 80s flat top as a white kid in
I'm saying go ninja, go flat, okay? Anyway.
So much product.
And he had this red shirt. So that had sharks and all that. And it was kind of a light red. And I think there was definitely kind of like a whispered conversation of, is that gay coded? You know, is this going to be cool to let this guy... And
yeah.
It was so much heat. It wasn't about, hey, those sharks are attacking those young men. It's, is this gay? And the moral panic. Right? They eventually decided to allow them, but it was a hot minute. It was really funny.
Well, there's one of those things where you're like, hey, technically speaking... And
this was the mid-'80s. This was like 1985, I think, give or take, right?
Oh, yeah.
So surfers were mega in style on any product. Video games, TV... clothes.
I think this would be the same era that we had T&C Surf Design, the video game.
That was fun.
It was really fun. It was one of those games that, like, there's no way you could get through the whole game. But mostly it was just about the surfing stage, which was early on. So fun. Yeah.
I forget which stage always wrecked us. It's not quite as bad as Battletoads, which we never beat. But
I got so close
Conrad,
once.
I hate... that if you managed to get through the really fast sewer phase on Battletoads, you had that horrible vertical climb. That was punishing you just for funs.
Battletoads was one of those games that when you look back on it, you're like, every level basically has different rules.
Yeah. And Chameleon says Battletoads is very, very hard. We never played Battletoads versus Double Dragon. I think we should have. Anyway, because that's like peak 90s right there. So let's talk about the Prometheus again. Conrad, I agree with you. So one thing that's weird to me is that Voyager and the Star Trek Next Generation movies post after the first one, they're doing sharper profiles, right? And then when we do Picard... and we get to season 3, because the first 2 seasons don't really count. It's all big fat roundies again. Big fat roundies, you know? But it's also, they're going retro roundies. They're doing like the fat edge sides. What if we go back to like the Yorktown? You know what I mean?
So they're taking some inspiration from TOS mixed with TNG, as opposed to the TNG style saucers. You know, and it's a shame. I would have loved to see the ambassadors, the galaxies. That era.
And what's sad is they didn't like, because the funny part is they're like, oh yeah, we've retired all the ships. It's like, fuck the what? We had fucking ambassador classes forever.
Well, also retiring all those ships doesn't make any sense though, because
Excelsior, sorry.
First off, the cost to build one of those, and so therefore the operational lifespan you should expect. But also those ships, like the Galaxy, the way that Star Trek approached them philosophically, they envisioned them as these like kind of quasi-living, like they'd be in service for a few hundred years. That was kind of the insinuation of the whole organic shape and the way they kind of had this really hippie approach. But no. By the time of Picard, they're like, screw that, that's old. Those are out. Let's put new stuff in. Whereas in TOS, in TNG, we had a generation where we were getting like Reliant ships and the hood.
And here's the thing: why are we so afraid in modern Trek to this design pattern? This era of vessel with this kind of glowy outer nacelle, this kind of, whether it's the round fats of the D or the Voyager era kind of like arrowheads, why do these tapered organic designs get pushed away so they're going back to like warship analogs?
Well, I mean, so this is peak Voy, right? And Voy really leaned into this. Didn't what's the Pathfinder one? The kids one, the
Yes, and you're talking. See, it's fucked up because it's Prodigy, but the ship isn't called Prodigy. It's called the Protostar, which everyone knows is a sin.
Leaned into Void designs.
So Prodigy, Prodigy is a wonderful show. Everyone, it is kid written. Oh well, it's teenager written. So for teenagers, it's about the same maturity level as Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's got 2 seasons, but they're 2 fat seasons by today's standards, of 20 episodes each. Which means even though it got canceled, it got 40 episodes, and it does a lot. You've got Janeway, you've got Chakotay, you've got the EMH, you have the Voyager A, you've got Transwarp. You've got what?
Don't you get Wesley?
Yes, you get Wesley Crusher. Conrad, Wesley Crusher going in full-time Doctor mode. You know what I mean? It's just...
Oh, man, so glorious. I mean, but so the Prometheus speaks that, like, now here's the thing. Look at the front of this for our audio listeners, if you're listening in audio. The Prometheus front's sharper even than the Voyager. And you got the big fatty lasers, phaser strips from this era. I love the phaser strips.
Oh,
going down
they're
the
so
front.
powerful. Yeah.
But I am curious because one of the disadvantages of the wedge shape, unlike the, say, like the
saucers,
the saucers, like the Galaxy, like those strips go all the way around so they can get the good coverage on the back too. I'm not sure how the Prometheus handles the back. With
well, we've seen Voyager has back-facing phasers, so I assume there's some strips on the secondary hull. So.
That's possible, or even just some point emitters that have a fairly wide range.
Right, because, like, for example, we know the Defiant has a couple back-facing point emitters.
Now, so we've got the bridge is probably this big protrusion on the top, and I swear there's some sort of like inset red thing on there.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that inset red thing in a future slide.
Okay, you got a good shot of that. Now, behind it, though, we've got the secondary hole, and it's got a very tight-packed 4 nacelle design. So it's like but they're tucked in behind the saucer, which is really cool.
And I'm trying to remember,
they're
Conrad.
also really angular. They look good. It looks good.
We don't have a lot of 4 nacelle ship designs up in the forefront. I think there's some implied by Wolf 359, but I'm trying to remember if in the DS9 Next Generation era there was a straight-up 4 nacelle design. I feel like there was.
So is it the Akira class? I believe is insinuated to be a 4.
Is it? I thought the Akira class was very much a.
I don't know if we ever saw one in One Piece.
Oh, we do. We see them in Deep Space Nine. The Akira class are 2 nacelles.
Oh,
they are very outrigger style in their case.
Actually, you know what's interesting is they're really reminiscent of. Did those come out? So the Akira class really make me think of.
Cheyenne class, but we only ever see it at a distance. We see the Cheyenne at extreme distance. Yeah.
Looked like they were a strong influence on Enterprise's ship design for Enterprise.
Yes. It looks a lot like the NX-01. Right?
Yeah.
So, Conrad, now we got to flip over to what makes a Prometheus, quote, special. And I think it's a little silly of a gimmick, but, okay, this is an experimental warship during the Dominion War. We never see another one of them because by the time Voyager gets home, it's over. And this is the look. So we've got this battle mode where it separates into 3 segments. Now, the Galaxy class can separate into 2, and it's a gimmick that's done for a few seasons on TNG and then largely not done.
They do it on screen twice.
More than twice, but not a lot more. Because ultimately what it comes down to is it's expensive to shoot new stuff with it, and it takes a lot of time to deal with it, so it's not worth the squeeze of the juice, which is a shame because the premise is it's very valuable. Now they do it on the initial episode, they do it in Wolf 359, they do it at least once in between then, but I think they do it once near the end.
They do it they don't do it
for before Wolf 359 after Wolf 359 they do it to steal back
the steal the cues. Now what's really interesting about that is I think honestly what happened is it was this design idea they had. They put all the civilians on it. They have one of the JGs take command to fly it to safety, and then the secondary hull in battle mode goes in to handle whatever the big thing is, right? But I feel like they realized, let's be honest, the secondary hull without the saucer on Just to
kind of looks
good.
Guys, it looks kind of dumb. So I mean, the thing is, it looks kind of dumb. Now I'm going to say this about the triple stack here. Okay, so this separates into 3, and it's highly automated because, of course, it is the future. Yeah, drone weapons, folks. Is the middle segment and the top segment look good, right? But the bottom segment alone has that weird flat ass top. I feel like it should do a barrel roll so the quote bottom becomes the top because it's so flat headed. You know what I mean?
I mean, honestly, if it peeled off and flipped over, now I assume after having watched Lower Decks as much that there's actually decking and stuff down there, because Lower Decks, like the way that they use that secondary hole, kind of makes you think about people getting into other spaces, but it's so flat. Like there's 1 or 2 decks on that secondary hole on the bottom.
Yeah, it's not a tremendous amount. Yeah, sorry.
It's kind of a gimmick, but you have to admit it was kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. It's a bit. Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, but then later you're like,
what this is called?
This seems
is a ship design pitched by a guy who was really into the saucer separation.
But you know what's funny? Originally, the pitch was 5 segments, and then they're like, that's too much money. We're going to do 3.
That's too many.
Yeah. So, Conrad, here we see them fighting. And you'll notice the bottom one has at least 4 decks, and it is not flipped over, sadly. But take a look at what the top saucer section has.
Is that a little baby warp nacelle?
It's a pop-out warp nacelle.
I didn't even catch that in the actual,
it's so brief, and they never go to warp with it. But they want you to know it has a little pop-out warp nacelle.
Actually, they are going to warp. It's kind of insinuated this fight.
Oh, they're fighting at warp. So, yeah, they're at warp.
Correct me if I'm wrong. So what bothers me about this is...
Oh, no, they're not fighting at warp. I think the idea is they're at high impulse. But you're right.
We got the star streaks. Because the phasers shouldn't work at warp, but...
Yes, as everyone knows, phasers don't work at warp speed unless you are overlapping your warp bubbles. Because phasers move the speed of light. At warp, the space around you is moving faster than...
Now, also, correct me if I'm wrong, though. So here's a thought, though. Like, if you did, like, a short warp jump, fired your phaser at warp, and then managed to have the computer peel it off so you all didn't just die slamming into something...
well, it's worth noting, see, here's the thing about warp. When you're inside the warp bubble, there's no inertia.
So it wouldn't but
the inertia of jumping to warp is because you accelerate the 0.75 c for full impulse or whatever it is, 0.9, whatever they get to, before you jump as part of the jump in. So that part will splatter you for obvious reasons.
What I'm wondering about is the compression effect on the phaser beam moving at near.
I know what you're saying. Like if it's in a compressed space wave. What's it like? Now, Star Trek warp fields don't send out the compressed space in front of them in an attack fashion. It seems to just bend them around them. But
because otherwise you just blow up every planet you went to. Science is weird.
The math, folks. Just so we have an understanding, there is some math around what is an Albuquerque warp drive, which is a theoretical real-world solution to how we can make a warp drive. The problem is we need things like negative energy, which can exist, but probably not in any volume that matters outside of a black hole, right? Anyway, the point is, those things compress space in front of them in a way that, based on the math, if you were going in a straight line towards a planet and then you stop in front of it, that compressed space wave would send so much energy into the planet, you wouldn't have a destination to arrive at. It would be, it'd be hot fish juice. It would be
it would be yeeted out of existence by the compressed wave of reality that strikes.
It would be tiny little particles of exploded dust. It would be bad.
So here's the thing. This little pop-out warp drive on top of it, while it's kind of silly, I'm here for it. It kind of neat. Now, here's the thing. Imagine a Prometheus series got greenlit because they invested so much in the bridge set.
Sure, why not?
I can't decide if they did a reuse on that or whatever, but imagine the random plot points and other things be that little pop-up. They've got their own little warp drive clearly in.
Yeah. No, that would be fun.
Sections.
So what are you saying, this drive by itself, or do you mean them going separate directions to explore and all that?
Aside from just all the separate directions madness that they can pull off in weird stories, and then they give up because it's just too much trouble like TNG. But I mean, the fact that there's a little warp nacelle there, how many plots are going to have, we can alter the warp because they can do things that other ships can't do because they got this little...
Well, they have 5. They have at least 5, if not 8. We don't know... 7. We don't know for sure, because like if you look on it over on the bottom left here, that might be a warp nacelle. That's inline warp drive, right?
But Kyle, the other insinuation is that each of these saucers, each of these sections has its own warp core.
Yeah. Now, yes, exactly, which is psycho. Because, of course, a warp drive requires a warp core. 3 warp cores.
Maybe they aligned it to like a triple stack warp core, but like you've got 3 furnaces.
3 dilithium chambers when you fully... That's fucked.
I mean, I'm just saying from an engineering perspective, you could do some cool shit, but we never get to see engineering.
Right, because it's worth noting, like, the fucked up part about the Galaxy class is that saucer section can do impulse. Which, by the way, makes it a very effective lifeboat, but only a lifeboat. Because it's like you've got powerful fusion drives that can keep everyone alive on it for a very long time, because it seems to be built with that in mind. But you can't get anywhere meaningfully, because, again, the speed of light is really slow.
Well, but here's the thing. Since it's such a powerful lifeboat, and, okay, assuming we're going to assume the fusion generators can run all the replicators and the life support, which it appears to be the case, and that it can get to a very high appreciable value of C.
Sure.
Like 0.75, then that would insinuate, like, if you could go 3/4 the speed of light...
Time dilation at 3/4 of the speed of light isn't very beneficial.
Well, no, it's not about the time dilation. I'm just saying that in the average space in the Milky Way galaxy, odds are you could get to a star system in a reasonable amount of time.
Within a few years...
Well, yeah, no, but if you've got but if the ship's designed for deep space missions, and if those fusion reactors keep running for a few years, you've got food, light, water, everything you need to get there, warmth. I'm not saying it's great,
but more importantly, it has subspace radios, so you know.
And subspace radios. Well, I mean, odds are you'll get rescued, but I mean, like it's like like so many times we see this. Oh, the ship went somewhere, and I'm like, the saucer section of the D is like pretty comfortable. They've got a bar. They've got replicators.
Honestly, I feel bad. Now imagine the D had been the top half's destroyed in a war, and you've got the bottom half, and you're not able to go back and refurbish, get a new lid or whatever, or just be retired out. You got no bar, man. What do I mean?
So I've played this game, and that's where you make a makeshift bar with some engineering buddies.
Yeah, I did that, and I really wanted to do a season 3 where you finally had the whole ship again. But you know what? We'll get to that. I was running a Star Trek tabletop RPG, folks. It was okay. But anyway, Cobra, let's talk about the inside. Okay, before we talk about the inside in detail on these things, I want to give you a breakdown because they do talk about it. Thank you for having fun, Chameleon. I had fun with you all. So, the Prometheus interiors were designed using redressed portions of the recreated Excelsior Bridge made in flashback. So remember the bridge that they recreated almost piece for piece from the movie for the purposes of the flashback episode? They reused that. The Voyager sickbay, big shock there. I think we can see what happened there. And a number of new sets. Later on, the bridge, they would reuse that again for the Equinox. So
for a moment, I was trying to decide if the bridge was somehow a clever reshoot and redress of the Defiant Bridge, but it's just too big.
No, because the Defiant Bridge doesn't have enough of those. I mean, the giveaway, Conrad, we'll see. It's the back wall in all the panels. Yeah. That's the giveaway. Now, here, what they've obviously done is they've put a lot of cheap, lightweight, largely unpainted or uniformly matte-painted paper, whatever, cardboard, whatever, plywood, over most of sickbay.
See, I was trying to figure out how they could have redone it without like painting over everything. And
doesn't it look like they just literally put like beige panels over everything?
Well, and they turned up the lighting, but also that center arc. I think they added some arcs up to.
I think so.
The center.
I think so.
So it's when you think about it, it's really clever because it speaks sickbay language. Because even the TNG one has this big sensor pod gizmo up top.
Yeah.
What's funny about the big sensor like gizmo pod is that they always have the little extra sensor thing that comes over, but like it's.
So you're like, the fuck is that? Is that just to look at guts? What's going on? You know, right? You can turn it up really bright so you can look down and go, ew.
And is the carpet the same color, or is it just that they turned up?
I think it's I think it's an identical carpet, but they put up panels behind to avoid the corridor walls, so you have the white corridors. The weird thing for me about the Prometheus is, as a side effect of trying to make it look new, is how pale it is as a ship.
Well, it's very pale compared to what Federation ships we normally see, and it's so bright. It's so bright.
And I don't hate the brightness. If we had to do this, or we had to do the Picard ships, because Picard ships, it's kind of like I need a flashlight. I'm in bridge. I'm going to trip. You know.
Well, you might have to turn it down because if you turn the lights up too much, the non-carpeted bridge.
The incredibly polished, like fucking marble / polished metal floors.
Truman Daniels, do you know how much he's got to go there every night captaining during the night shift. While it's normally a big deal, so, he's got the buffer machine in there every night to get that thing buffed.
So a meme about season 3, in particular the Enterprise D's restored bridge, right? Because the saucer section is the one that crashed. The drive section was refurbished from another Galaxy class to make the remade D, right? That's the premise. And so they're all standing there and all admiring Geordi's work because Geordi's a fucking amazing guy. And anyway, and this meme, and I think it was shared in our game server by either Chameleon or Stone Soup or Crazy Hobbit Man, was seeing you all together here on this bridge again. I remember what it is I miss the most about Starfleet: the carpet.
The carpet, yeah, the fucking carpets. Because in TNG era, big carpet might have a thing, but that was to me one of the really cool things about that era. I don't know why the carpet really upgraded. Actually, I also miss the wood paneling on the D's bridge. They get rid of it at some point.
The D's wood paneling, especially Worf's arch. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh my god! Oh, Conrad, like that.
The designer. So, Kyle, the designer of the Prometheus, while he clearly is in Big Carpet's pocket, here's the thing. You get assigned, you're Kermit Daniels, you get put in transfer and you want to get off the Enterprise, you're getting a smaller ship, you're not going to have to spend as much time vacuuming. Look at how bright and clean this thing is and how white everything is. Yeah. Do you know how much of a maintenance nightmare that is to keep that?
100%. I mean, because the walls are one thing, right? And the carpet is even okay when you have the stain removing power of the 24th century. But all those workstations, all those places you touch, no.
So Conrad, they can leave a sample. Yeah. Look at the bridge even.
So here's the bridge. So Conrad, see that back? See the consoles on the back? That is Excelsior. I mean, that is the Excelsior's back wall for sure, right?
I do appreciate that they put a new LCARS over it. It looks great though.
The Excelsior also had a bit of a hybrid LCARS situation too, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
Oh, that's right, because it was kind of leading the new direction.
Yeah, but I love the double helm that they have here. We don't get to see a lot of double helms after TNG, honestly.
Oh, so okay, we don't.
The Defiant has a single seat. That's only the helm, right? The Voyager has only a single seat. Tom's got the largest station out of everybody. That thing is huge, right? The way it wraps around him. It must feel good for, Robert Duncan McNeil to sit down there and know he's in most of the shots just because his face is right up there at this giant...
You know what I appreciate about Tom in that station? That's got nooks down there that he keeps a phaser tucked into.
On
the bridge, Tom always whips a phaser out.
They've all got, I feel like most of them have a nook. It's kind of weird because I feel like Chakotay doesn't have a phaser nook. Like Janeway does, but it's kind of weirdly placed. She's got to do a weird stretch for it. Tom's is an easy reach down. Honestly, Tuvok usually has one on him, but there's definitely one there as well. Where's Chakotay?
Should have a little,
I think Chakotay has to down dart and forward. Like there's something, like Signs 2 or whatever.
Just toss it in the seat next to him.
Now, Harry has one. Harry has one for sure. So
now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Enterprise D had a full luxury 5-seat setup, right? Or
okay, so yeah, you've got of the main seats, you've got the two up front, right? So you've got operations and helm. Then you've got the captain with the first officer chair and the guest chair, right? And honestly,
but I thought there was two other chairs next.
And then there were two little fold-out guest chairs, which are the doctor would sit in one being like, what, this is what I earned? And then whoever, I don't know if we ever saw anyone sit to the right of right.
Well, it was very rare, but the reason I call that out is, one, I mean, I feel like they use the bridge so well on TNG, right? Like it's foundational. The biggest clue that I should have had that this was the Excelsior redress is this is TOS. That is a captain seat by itself
Yeah.
Also, but look at the OSHA hazards. Look at all the dips around that, the ways you could fall off and everything.
Oh, yeah, because that's what they had before. Also, all those edges of pipes just sticking out on the...
Like, if you're the XO on the Prometheus, you ain't up by the captain.
Yeah, but Connor, the Corley rocks are just going to hit you anyway, so, you know. Is that what they're called? I think they're called something like that.
Like
the Cordy, I think they're the Cordy rocks, yeah. I love Lower Decks for trying to give those a... like an insulation excuse. Anyway, love the bridge. Even though it's again, as you pointed out, they do a good enough job with the set they have that if you had to make a show with those sets, you could. I mean, you only have the two, but you can make it work, right?
You can make you just steal some hallways, but it is so bright.
Okay, let's talk about the crew real quick. This is the only guy we ever get to talk to. He's a security guard. He's an ensign. He's got to be at least in his mid to late 30s, and. He's got the high widow's peaks. He's got, the second chin. This poor guy, he didn't sign up for this shit, man. And by the way, he's here. He made it to sick bay. He doesn't get a chance to say EMH whatever. And they do the classic, well, you're alive enough to tell us a couple of sentences, but you're not alive enough for me to save. You know?
Well, also, I want to say this. Compared to, if you look at how the ship's computer worked in TNG, there were times the computer would just do shit on its own, and because it detect things, and they'd have plot points about that. The Prometheus is a cold hard bitch because the Prometheus computer's like, oh yeah, there's Romulans everywhere. That's an injured guy out here, and it's this guy's been here for probably a good 30 plus minutes.
What? Yeah, easily.
And the computer didn't activate the EMH on board there to take care of him. It's
been at least 40 minutes, because 40 minutes after the thing was discovered, it was still just kind of going in a straight direction, and they're like, right. We don't have much time. So this guy has had plenty of time to be fixed, right? Also, now that I'm thinking about it, they talk about maybe he's a holographic commando that they uploaded. If this is a top secret, weapons platform testing experimental ship, and you have holodeck emitters everywhere, hear me out. Have an emergency commando holograms, 10 of them that you just.
Well, even ESHs, emergency security holograms, computer activate ESH, because you're getting boarded. You know what? Yeah, they have to use real phasers, but they can
the
run
ECH, the emergency command hologram from when they finally do that for the Doctor. There's the joke about it from his dream, and then later they actually do it. It's hilarious.
I forgot they actually did it once.
And what I love is the color of his uniform changes. That's the best part. So
it doesn't not just that, but then the pips appear.
That's in the dream. I don't think the pips appear in the real one. So.
But the fact that this poor... So what do you think this guy's name is, by the way? Is this you got a name for him? What are we feeling?
I'm feeling like it's something really basic bitch, like Corey.
Corey? So that's not too far. I was thinking of Bradley, Corey. Okay, we're thinking the same thing there.
So definitely an E. And you know what? He wanted to be part of something cool. He figured he'd die to the Jem'Hadar someday. Romulans caught him out of the blue. Also, there's so many questions. How did the Romulans get
about this cherry cup? Look, here's the thing about Ensign Corey. Ensign Corey Bradley. Ensign Corey Bradley. Rough family name, right? He was so excited about this assignment to the Prometheus. Top secret ship, yeah, but it's cutting edge, right? The EMH can go everywhere. They're out testing it. It's top secret. It's not frontline of the Dominion War. This thing is this is going to be great. And then somehow, meanwhile, they don't explain how Romulans, where did these Romulans come from? How did they get the jump on these guys? How did they
so many questions. So many questions.
This had to happen before the Romulans joined the war in the Dominion War, I'm assuming.
Right. Absolutely. It really sucks to be Corey. And I'm going to keep us quick on this one because we got 2 slides left, and I don't want to go too late because I've had a very busy day. Let's see if I can safely advance. I almost hit a button, but I was going to autoplay, so I don't want to hit that. I'll hit this. Conrad. And then, of course, we got to talk about Mark II. EMH Mark II, played by Andy Dick before he got some molestation charges against adults. So it's not a pedo thing, but it's still kind of sad and fucked up. But anyway, he's the kind of weird-ass comedian you would have never expected to see on Star Trek. But he does such a great job being the EMH Mark II. The idea, and they play on this later, is that the Mark I's kind of suck bedside manner wise, and so they're making a better one. We don't know how long they keep this. This could have been Bashir. Bashir could have been this. It's a shame in a way that they didn't keep that, because we could have had a guest star.
That would have been so good.
Oh, Conrad, that would have been so
and
great.
Let's be honest. Bashir's EMH would have been better than this one, because this one's not that far from the apple on the EMH one, if you ask me.
Right. And, yeah, so he's interesting. He's like, well, actually, he's much more cowardly. He's willing to, like, you know, go out right away. He's like, okay, I got to turn myself off. I mean, to be fair, he doesn't have much experience. It's like literally his first 5 minutes is like, what the fuck's going on? Why am I here? You know, like the doctor at least had some people around him, and mostly was upset that no one turned him off. This guy can self-deactivate. Right, you know, which is right
from the start.
Which is
interesting. That would lead you to believe that other ships had problems with their EMHs at the time. Although it is interesting how fast they replaced the. Think about this. So we learned about the EMH1, and within 4 years, they're definitely replacing it.
And we can guess that Voyager is one of the first ships with an EMH, right?
Kyle, I can't even get a pair of augmented reality glasses in 4 years from prototype to design. And then for them to just be like, you know what, that's so bad, we're going to start over from scratch. Because the EMH Mark II isn't a software, like they didn't patch. This isn't like Windows. Kyle, if it was Windows, like this would just be, he'd have a security patch on him. We'll just patch them. Right. It'll be fine.
But I do want to say, I feel like this guy... despite all that, because by the way, I'm totally with you. Doesn't he feel kind of like if Bashir met the EMH, as far as like there's sort of like a foppishness meets sort of like surliness? Yeah, no, he's all that. It is weird to imagine though what would have happened if Andy Dick had wanted to and auditioned for and been cast in this role instead. That would have been like as EMH Mark 1. That would have been funny. Weird.
It'd be such a different character. Like, it's interesting because actors are professional liars who don't write the roles or invent the character or anything. There's, a particular Norwegian actor that talks about that, or he's Swedish, I can't remember. But where he's like, oh, I love all those things, but he brings a gravitas to his character. Like, you bring something to it, even though you don't invent anything.
Ultimately, especially in the case of Voyager, a lot of the actors had very little control over their role. It's just what they did influenced them, right? Yeah.
But the vocal delivery, the physicality, the interesting thing is like you have very little influence a lot of times on like, especially in Star Trek, on the lines, but you're still part of what makes the character. So I'm trying to imagine all the same lines of dialogue. Surely, because like after a while, they write characters a little differently because of the actor, not because the actor is personally influencing it, but what the actor's better at or worse at or what sells. So it's trying to imagine Andy Dick and the years of like if we just substituted one for the Doctor, how different would the Doctor feel with Andy Dick playing the EMH? It's a crazy thought.
No, it is absolutely crazy. He does a good job, though. These two play off each other in cantankerous fashion. It's definitely a fun sort of comedy duo. And the highlight, obviously, the episode, because they have, like, at least half the screen time between them. Okay, lastly, Conrad, we're going to briefly talk about the two Romulans with speaking lines out of, like, the 4 we see on screen. Navala and Captain Ricard. They have an energy, you know? They I feel like they're Tal Shiar operatives, but it's weird because Ricard is talking like, hey, we're going to take this ship to the Tal Shiar because that's where it belongs. And I love the classic, like, well, that wasn't the instructions, but Romulans are always like, you know, kind of Romulan each other.
You could sense some of that, like, what are you defying me? Like, it's like, follow my orders. I'm like, oh man, Romulans. They're not Klingon level bad where, like, you know, it's normal to have knife fights to, like, you know, handle ship discipline. But they were channeling some serious. They're like, we get one Romulan episode in all of Voyager, we're gonna Romulan the fuck out of it.
Right, because we get a couple of
including the standard issue Romulan haircuts. Like these are mandated.
We get 2 Romulan episodes, but this is the only episode with them. Yeah. We get the season 1. We get the season 1 episode
with the scientist. Right?
Yeah. But these guys are modern Romulans. They got the haircuts. They have the spray on gold tan. They have the square shoulders. Although, thankfully, again, you know, it's the trimmer DS9 era shoulders. But you can tell they're kind of badasses, Connor, because they have the black bondage straps, not the silver bondage straps.
Yeah, it is the black bondage straps.
They have the oversized disruptor holsters,
That's not a holster. Those are disruptor pouches. You can keep
pouches. You can keep your snacks in there.
I was gonna say you can put some granola bars in there. You can put your data pad with the smut you've been reading in there. And still pull your.
I love this. Chameleon says, "I believe Romulan haircuts are mandated." We have joked that there's probably like 5 official Romulan haircuts you're allowed to have. Most of them look like this, and you cannot deviate. You got to choose one of the 5. Now, Connor, I want to really point out quickly. This is Judson Scott, who plays Ricard. He's the captain of the Romulan group, or a commander. He played Joe Cheem, who's the sidekick to Khan in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, I thought he had a familiarity here.
He also is on the drug lesson episode Symbiosis, along with the guy that played Kirk's son. They play opposite of each other. It's TNG's.
Right.
Yeah. This is all. He's from the rich planet, not the druggy planet. But
so what's weird about that is, did a casting director do that on purpose? Where it's like, I gotta hire both of these guys.
Yes, that was deliberate. That wasn't an accident. They went out of their way to do that. And one of them died shortly thereafter. Kirk's son, was a openly gay actor in the 80s during the time when AIDS was riddling the community, and Reagan was like, what money to help people? We're not going to do that.
Yeah, the crimes of the Reagan era and the early AIDS pandemic.
Yeah, no, it's pretty fucked up. But but this guy lived, and so unfortunately, it would have been fun because we could have had them buddies again. He could have been Navala, they could have been, one last rodeo together. But
that would have been fun. Although I feel like if they'd done that, then one of them would have to have like white hair. You don't see that very often. I don't know if we ever see anything about Romulan. Do they have dyed hair?
I think we begin to see hair color variation in Picard, but pre-Picard, I believe pre-Picard, all non-extremely old Romulans have black hair. But we do see some silver hair Romulans.
As
a
much
couple
as
of others.
Picard season 1 is got some weirdness, it does more for Romulan characters than almost any other Star Trek.
Prior to that, it'd been a long time since we'd had much in the way of Romulans. Like Enterprise had a couple episodes because they were playing at Romulans being a major threat for a whole series. And then that didn't happen because they got canceled. But they got a couple episodes off, right? Which is also weird because the Romulan War wouldn't have happened then. So they would have never been allowed to be on screen at the same time as humans, right? Or Vulcans.
They could never. They could have had the characters, but they could never talk to each other. They could never encounter each other directly.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah, they couldn't be sharing a scene where they interact with each other because they just didn't do that. It's so weird. Yeah. But as far as I know, so Sayla has blonde hair, of course, but she's half Romulan. Bael has sort of reddish brown hair, but she's half Klingon. Gosh, I don't know. I don't have a full list in front of me.
Well, I wonder if this is like going to a public school in Japan, where you're like, look, if your hair is a different color, it's getting dyed to the mandated.
If it's your natural color, you can have it, but you definitely only
in Tokyo, in Japan. Oh no, no. Actually, if you're Japanese and your hair isn't the appropriate shades of black, there's some schools that will force you to dye it because they think it's inappropriate.
I would like to verify that, but yeah, there are some secondary characters that appear with reddish hair in Picard, but so
secondary characters, yeah.
So I've just done a quick scan. Otherwise, it's no hair or black hair or brown, in there.
Oh, that's right. We've got some bald ones, and then the Remulans. I would love to see some more Remulans.
Remans. No L, just Remans. Yeah, those guys are weird, and they don't really reuse them after that. They're like, maybe not.
They make references a couple times, but that's it.
Lower Decks does a reference, and we see some body parts, but Yeah. A social stigma, not explicit mandate. That might be the case, which is sad because I understand it's popular. But yeah, that's the episode, Conrad. There we go. So yeah, here we are. Conrad, next week we're talking about the very next episode because this is one of those cases where the plot meaningfully continues. It's Hunters. We're going to see Idrin's ship. Idrin is one of the wow, my brain completely Hirogen. So this is the we've seen a Hirogen in this episode on the screen. They didn't make the communications network, but they've been in this area of space for a while, so they took it. And the Voyager is going to be going to try to get more information from one of these nodes, and they're going to run into some Hirogens and have a good time.
Good old
by which
Hirogens.
I mean, yeah.
I really liked the interesting angle at first, but then they went weird. They got weird with Hirogens.
I mean, they have some fun with them for a while, and then they do the takeover transporter thing, which isn't a horrible idea, honestly. It's a fun little sort of gimmick, but it is weird. I mean, the Hirogen as a people are a very aggressive warrior culture that somehow have some incredibly powerful technology for the purposes of weapons and propulsion, and they physically themselves are big enough that even Borg have to worry about them. So,
well, the Hirogen are basically, hey, what if we make a race that's the Predators but not the Predators?
Yeah.
And then where does it end? Where does it end? I know. How about 1945 France and Nazis? And,
but it doesn't end there. Actually, there is a follow-up episode after that.
Is there an episode after that too?
So what happens is they give the holographic technology to them, basically to get them off the ship, which I know they've fought against doing that, but they're like, here's some holographic technology so you can go and make your own. And the Hirogen do that, and the Hirogen like hunting ground there, the holograms jump the shark, become self-aware and start killing Hirogen, and then the Hirogen are like, help, and Voyager's like, fine, I guess we have to because it's kind of our fault. And they fight a holographic rebellion.
Okay, well, see, here's what I have to ask about this. This is what makes no sense. Let's assume you're Captain Janeway, you're doing your responsible job, trying to get your crew home. And so you've given the Hirogen transporter technology, and they go off to build Shangri-La. And you're like, you guys are weird with your holodeck technology, making your hunting grounds, but whatever. No judgment. And then you fly away. I'm assuming at warp speeds. And then, like, I don't know, a few months pass. And then they're like, hey...
I think it's a few weeks at best, and also I think they go in different forward directions. I agree, one of the weird things that can happen when you're trying to play the locality with Voyager is that, like, it's worth remembering that for like 2 years they're traveling through, arguably speaking, Kazon space, and yet somehow the same Kazon dude is following them the entire time.
Just to put this in perspective, it takes something like 6 weeks to get from Earth to Bajor. Bajor's really far from Earth, and that's a pain in the butt big deal.
6 weeks under like warp 6, but yeah.
That's my point, though. My point is that stopping to fly a month and a half back, you should be just gone. You're just gone. Like, that is a huge.
I don't think they fly a month and a half back. That's my point. I think they both weren't at that original point.
Well, so what? So the Hirogen were just...
The Hirogen are highly nomadic. The Hirogen are highly nomadic. So, yeah.
Again, either way that you dice it is some of the ways that Voyager handles space sometimes. You're like, that's weird.
But again, it's a side effect of what they're doing with it. You want some repeatable guest species for plot reasons. Like the Malons show up way too late after the original show up. But, at the same time, obviously, you're hand waving because of the distance of light years. It is weird. I agree. It's a problem. But, Anyway, with that said, bro, that's what's coming up next. Conrad, it is time for you to give us our way out with the fun dad advice of the week.
My fun dad advice of the week is popsicles. It's just popsicles, guys. Look, summer's coming up. Keep popsicles in your fridge. Why popsicles? Easy. 1, they taste good. 2, they're juicy. 3, they're made of ice, and it's going to be hot. 4, they're really low calorie. They're 20 to 40 calories on average, depending on the kind you get. And if you've got children, you can just let them eat popsicles all day long. I want a popsicle. The answer should just be, okay, sure. Like, if you look at the one soda is like 9 popsicles worth of soda of calories. All right, it's just it's a great way to keep the kids happy, and then you can have popsicles too, and they will cool you down, and they're a delightful little treat that is actually fairly responsible. That's my dad advice of the week. Popsicles, folks.
Popsicles. Honestly, Popsicles isn't a horrible piece of advice. I mean, nutritional content aside, but it sounds like the calories are low, so I'm kind of thinking maybe
the
you've got
nutritional
something.
content is mostly various dyes and water with a dash.
So
of
yeah,
sugar.
soon not Red 40, but we're gonna have some other dyes there, so that's good. That's
Also,
good.
you can get hippie popsicles. You tend to get a little bit more calories in hippie popsicles, but they don't have any.
That's because they have to use natural colorants. That's the thing, So
Well, it's usually because they're using fruit juice, and it actually turns out the fruit juice is not. It's not good.
no,
for you guys.
fruit
It's not
juice
really-
is not processed or highly processed. There is a benefit there because it turns out processing certain things may have negative side effects, but it's also very sugary. And as we know.
Fruit juice, so there's this whole time in the 80s and early 90s. It's like, oh, juice, not soda. Juice is just soda. Soda is just juice. The two are the similarity nutritionally wise, because most of the fiber isn't in the juice because you took.
No, I mean, I guess if you get the pulping kind, it's kind of okay, but realistically speaking, it's still there's healthier choices, right? Eat the fruit. They say just eat the whole fruit.
My dad advice is it's gonna get warm, folks. Get some popsicles.
Popsicles. Remember that, everybody. Brought to you in part by Stardate Supplemental and the Popsicle Council of America. If the Popsicle Council of America exists, I want you to know they did not, in fact, endorse this. But they probably would.
If they would like to send us a self-addressed stamped envelope and 25 cents, then we will send them photos or something and tell them thank you for sponsoring.
I was thinking they could just mail you popsicles. It sounds like that would work for you.
Popsicle sticks, I guess. I mean, you don't want to be mailed the actual popsicles, just like
because it'd be wet. Yeah, no, you brought up a very valid point.
So we're sending them something back, but they got to pay. It's got to be a self-addressed stamped envelope, so that we're not paying for it, and then we'll send them an official poster.
Concerns are valid. All right. With that said, everybody, keep your popsicles on. Doing the math. I'll see you next week. But not the week after that.
Bye!